and gentlemen, we are happy to welcome Mr. Colby Sharma. Colby is an author and a lawyer, and he's the founder of several successful businesses, including QFI, which is Queen's Personal Finance Initiative. His seminal book, The Curveball, a story of grit, adversity, and winning the game of life. The book takes an awe-inspiring journey through struggle, teaching perseverance, grit, and daily tactics and habits. Now booked as a speaker, Colby is able to use his tremendous personal experience to take an audience on path of personal mastery. A huge sports fan, Colby sees the stories that are told through sports, the triumphs, the failures, and the links of personal growth and self-help. He is also a serial entrepreneur and has worked with CEOs and high-level entrepreneurs on a range of businesses and initiatives across a number of industries. He also developed pioneering legal software during his time as director of Firefly Legal. In writing his first book, Colby explores the ideas of egoic self and heroic self and the battle to overcome adversity. This ongoing battle exposes the challenges and difficulties we all face as human beings, as human battling with ourselves. A big proponent of daily habit, Colby believes that good rituals and can lead to increased productivity and growth and provide a solid foundation, particularly in times of change and instability. We welcome Colby for the session and to take us ahead with this program. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Wonderful to present to you all today in Goa, a land of such beauty, culture, and wisdom. Show of hands, how many people have faced adversity in the light of the last 3 years? Show of hands, just be honest in your businesses, personally and professionally. Okay, now we're in the right room. You know, I wanna take you back to 2006 in Toronto, where I'm from. And that was a time in my life where I faced a challenge, like so many people are going through, have gone through. And it was in those moments that I really realized what it takes to become resilient. Show of hands across the room, how many people want to become more resilient in the 60 minutes that I'm with you today? Show of hands, please. Show of hands, how many people want to define what it truly takes to become resilient? Show of hands. Well, before we dive in, I'm going to share with you a fable from Aesop's in ancient Greece. Yes, India is a beautiful, historic, cultural land, but this fable is one you'll love. A reed and an oak tree were arguing about their strength. The reed bent itself to the circumstances and it survived the upcoming storm. The oak tree remained resolute and was felled down by the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to share with you in that metaphor is that change is coming. We had the pandemic. It struck us down like nothing else had in more than 100 years, and that changed everything on a thimble. You'll be hearing a lot in this presentation. I believe there's the 4 horsemen of change. First is AI. How many people are dealing with, concerns about AI, what AI represents for your businesses? Show of hands. Maybe AI has not come for your business as yet, but there's ways to deploy it in ways that make your businesses more efficient and better for the long term. So let's really get into See, I believe there's 3 R's of great resiliency that I want to share with you. The first is redefine. We have several leading CEOs, MDs, titans of India Inc. Redefine what you want your mission to be. Redefine how you choose to hire. We're hearing a lot right now about quiet hiring, quiet firing. Redefine how you personally want to stand in today's economy. Redefine what you want the central purpose of your organization to be in the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and 100 years. You know, one way to look at it is, that I might suggest is as the last of a dying breed of celebrated industries. Because when you have that like perspective, it changes everything. Show of hands if that's an good insight to get everyone like jazzed up today. Thank you for being here at 3 p.m. when you could be, elsewhere. I'm really grateful to have you here today. The second one is reposition. Reposition how you want to go about things, what processes you want to implement. Reposition whether it could be a product in the marketplace. Reposition how you want to elevate your team members. It could be a different industry. It could be a different department. But what we can't do is follow the same playbook that we did in 2019. We can't. We have to be able to adapt because resiliency is your greatest currency, but what counts is how you deploy it, how you use it across your industry and across your organization. The third one is repurpose. Repurpose. Repurpose, whether it could be a new product, it could be a new offering, it could be a new twist on how to bring a new take on a product. It could be creating a new product line. But what's important is that you continue to iterate, you continue to redefine and not be cowed down by skeptics, by the marketplaces, by forces. As we'll get into later in the presentation, we have to shed zero-sum thinking. And by that I mean, just because someone wins doesn't mean we lose. Also, as we'll see, I believe there is a paradox that is forming here. You see, because this economy is going to take off like nothing else, but if we do not have the right, people capacities and putting them in the right places, we will never get there as well as we could. So when we talk about repurpose and really leading in an unknown space in the market, really transforming an existing product line and really taking it to the next level, we have In the Renewee to really look at as an example. How you can go from an existing product line that was seen to be stagnant and really revolutionize it, and how you can go about redefining it in its essence and introducing several new products around it. She didn't take no for an answer. She braved investors and the market. She trusted the only thing that truly mattered was what her customers were feeling down the line. And she didn't do it, in a way that's KPI driven or in a way that's C-suite denominated. Ladies and gentlemen, the highest common denominator we have is how do we deploy empathy into really understanding what our customers want. Hands up if that's an interesting insight. How can we use empathy to create greater sense of market dominance? So Indra did that, and she took the game to new heights. I believe there's this model. First is serenity. Serenity. See, why is serenity so valuable? Because if you're unwilling to let go, if you are fixated on the past, you're never going to get there. Serenity is important, that serene sense of disposition, that attitude essentially that says, I am going to go through this day with the inputs that I have. I'm not going to do no more, no less, but those are the outputs. These are the inputs I need to generate the outputs that I want. And that my stakeholders desire for the next level of your business or to lead your industry. The next one is adaptability. Adaptability in the unknown. Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld put it very well. There's known unknowns and there's unknown unknowns. When you deploy the resiliency that I'm suggesting and how you can activate it amongst your teams, you're going to be able to navigate the unknowns. The pandemic was a once in a generational unknown event. But it's one that has yielded the greatest value when people can see it for the greatest value. If you can switch from, working from home, if you can lead a hybrid workforce, granted, that's not applicable to everyone, but if you can have that as part of your toolbox, you'll thrive. Because you can adapt yourself to the current and the changing market conditions. You're going to be able to see things that you couldn't possibly have seen before. Because when we adapt ourselves, we create greater security within. And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Resiliency begins from within. It's an inner virtue that manifests the outer success. Show of hands, am I making any sense? The next one is synergy. Synergy. Synergy amongst every level of your team. Juniors to seniors. Crossing the age gaps. Braving that void of bringing in a new recruit. How do you create synergy in an age of disruption? How do you bring people together that might not have the same educational upbringing? Maybe they didn't go to ITT. Maybe they didn't go to the same prep school, but they had the common purpose to join your organization. So what can you do? Well, you can start by creating an open workspace and getting away from ticking off the boxes just for HR's sake, putting the human back in human resources so you can really take your organization to the next level. When we create greater synergy, we can truly see how the rising tide does lift all boats. And it's by creating greater synergy that we understand how we can truly get to the next level by activating that resiliency that lies within. Tenacity is the next one. How tenacious are you? How tenacious is your C-suite team? How tenacious is your business development representatives? How tenacious are they to chase the leads, book the calls, execute on the deals, strategize the KPIs when no one else wants to do that? How willing are they to brave change, discomfort? Because it's when we go out of our comfort zones that we know what the future holds and what the limits we can get to go to the next level. Don't have a comfort zone, have a discomfort zone. Wake up in the morning and say, what discomfort can I brave today? And I'm going to be serene in that disposition because I know that I have the resilient capabilities within to lead my team, to take it to the next level in the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. So when you go to work, today's Tuesday, next Monday, before you strategize the KPIs, before sales calls are booked, what non-negotiables can you bring to the table? How can you bring everyone together around the table? Maybe you can start by saying, where was your journey? What was your origin story? What was your, to get to this point? Whether it could be educational, it could be familial, it could be maybe you're from a different part of town, vast country, maybe you're from Gujarat, when your business is in Punjab. Where is your story? What is your background? And how are you going to use that in this business? The next one is, what personal adversities have you overcome? See, I believe that's very important. And I'll take you back to my story. So in 2006 in Toronto, I faced an adversity where I didn't know where my potential lay. But others saw it. And then it allowed me to see in it my potential. How I was able to triumph over the adversity that I was facing. And I did it by relying on mentors. I did it by relying on a support team, excluding like family. But having that external support was very valuable. And that's why adversity is very important, because it is the bedrock that underpins everything. As I share in the curveball, sometimes you have to lose something to find everything. Don't be scared of loss. Don't negate it as just being scarce. I lost, surrender that perfection. Surrender outer perfection and embrace inner reflection. It's too valuable of a time in the market to keep worrying about, loss, scarcity. Instead, turn it around and say, I don't need to be perfect. We're going through a really interesting time right now in society and in the marketplace, where we're dealing with rising rates of burnout. And a lot of the research that's coming out is there's several causes of burnout, and one of them is really this sense of perfection that has been inlaid upon us. It's important to know that perfection is really going to be the destruction of your brand value, people capacities, mental health, and mental wealth. So don't let perfection and the elusive nature of perfection distract you from the mission. Show of hands if that was an interesting segue into the next slide. This is Isaac Harvey, ladies and gentlemen. Isaac Harvey was diagnosed with a rare disorder called hypoplasia. Hypoplasia rendered him with no arms and stumps for legs. He navigated the adversities that he was facing by adapting himself, by shedding perfection, by saying, I am more than this adversity that I'm dealing with right now. Isaac Harvey is a testament to that possibility. Isaac Harvey just got an MBE, a member of the British Empire. And he went to Windsor Castle to get the award from the king. And the king so rarely did this. He went down the stairs to pin it on Isaac's chest. And he looked at Isaac and he said, thank you. He came down to Isaac's level and met him man to man, not on some pedestal. Isaac Harvey is now doing incredibly well just by being himself and not letting this, I hate this word disability, because you have someone like that is a testament to really what the true possibilities that every one of us has. So what I want to suggest from you with that is, do not let minuscule and micro adversities stand in your way. We're at a very valuable time right now in the marketplace. Times are changing. It's rough. There's macro forces at play that are going to stop you if you let them. And what I like to encourage you is, do not let them stand in your way. So some of the ways to navigate adversity are see problems as growth opportunities. When people see a problem and they see it as maybe it could be a perception, maybe it could be a real problem. But what if you flipped it on its head and you looked at it, what opportunities are they giving to me and my team? Maybe a problem is an ex-teammate has left for another business in another industry. Are you going to shackle them with an outdated thinking of a non-compete, and I'm going to get bogged down in that process and not let them pursue what makes them happy and what really brings a spark to their eyes? No. But what if you can see it as an opportunity to take what you gave that person and bring it to the next hiring cachet or the next several employees that are going to come join your enterprise? It's all about how you view the problems at hand. In the curveball I share, it's about how you respond to adversity, that what matters most. World-class singer Demi Lovato put it very well. There's nothing so much as beautiful as a smile that's gone through 1,000 tears. If someone has a beautiful smile, and if someone is, being showered with opportunity, and if there's abundance flowing, why are you going to limit that person? Why are you going to limit that situation in a thinking that is outdated? So see problems as opportunities. Number 2, reflection over perfection. This is a time to reflect on what is most important to you and your team. Reflect on how blessed you are, the gratitude you have to be in the industry that you're in. Employ the caliber of people that you're blessed to employ. Show of hands, how many people can spend more time actually being reflective before they start on what are business-focused tasks? Just by show of hands, I'm curious. More? I thought there would be more. One's good enough. So reflection over perfection. truly understand what your marketplace wants, what your team members deserve. I wrote this great stat, and it's really about how there's a silent conversation happening in the upcoming generations. You see, we're going through a time right now where industries are changing, businesses are changing, we're in an age of disruption. How do we become more resilient? And we start by having the essential conversations. And the conversation is simply, whose voice is leading the charge? Is it the top-down, C-suite denominated voice that's been leading the charge since the inception of your industry, of your organization? How malleable are you to bring other stakeholders around the table and really let rising tides lift all boats? The next generation is going to want to have an even greater voice. How prepared are you to accept their voice, though? India is a country, 60% of the population are under the age of 40. In the next 50 years, whose voice is going to be paramount? And what conversations are they going to want to be having? It's a good nugget to jot down. How many of you journal in the morning? Show of hands. Pardon? Well, the next time you journal, before you sit down for a business meeting or you plan and strategize, what conversations are going to be the most important? Who's going to be leading those conversations, and what do you want them to say? So I was living in Toronto in 2021, and I ran into this homeless gentleman on the street. And it was textbook, what you would think. And it was right outside a coffee shop. And I saw the sign on his trolley. Homeless man, please buy bracelets, $4, $5. He was creating his own industry in a way that made him proud in a world that took everything from him. Took his dignity, took his self-respect. This was a time to bring it back and give him that tiniest shred of dignity, because it's compassion to oneself that is the most important. I went to him and I said, tell me your journey to get to this point. If you don't, I won't pry, no problem. And I bought a bracelet from him. And I never forgot what he said. He said, you're one of the few people that has taken the time out of their day to come have a coffee, bring me a coffee, and have a conversation. Have a real, honest, open conversation with me. And it brought a tear to his eye and to my eye. To this day, it's one of the most powerful examples that I have, because it's truly the essence of what being a resilient individual is all about, deploying that greatest currency that we all have. It's a true example of potential as well. If you don't see your potential, how will others see your potential? This is a time, ladies and gentlemen, to embrace your uncertainty quotient. Show of hands, how many people have heard that term, the uncertainty quotient? I'm curious. So we've heard of EQ, IQ. Now it's going to be UQ. UQ, the uncertainty quotient, is really going to be about how much uncertainty are you going to be able to withstand to go forward. What levels of self-sacrifice is it going to take for you to get off the bench and finally play the game of life? We had the Cricket World Cup that ended last month. India had a smashing tournament. Wonderful performance by Mr. Kohli. And it's in that final match that really put the tournament as a whole into beautiful context. And the poignancy of really what it takes to elevate your game amidst internal pressure and external pressure. When the Australian captain made that decision to let India, that really was the mindset shift. And it really shows you that, it's that smallest of adversities that really dictate how the game is going to go. And the next time you're in front of a colleague, you're in front of a team member, you're pitching to a client, maybe you're delivering a speech, maybe you're raising money for your industry, your business, think about what small adversities am I going to overcome? What small steps am I going to take that's going to enable me to get the job done? In the curveball I share, it's about one base at a time. In this case, one over at a time. But it's about one, notch at a time, one repetition, one pitch, one client, one stakeholder interaction that's going to separate you from the rest, and it's going to take you that next level to go forward. So I go to this church near my home, and I see this sign outside the church, and I wondered what the sign was all about. And it's Van Carlo Beatification Day. And I'm just like, what's this all about? So I asked people, who was this guy and what is his importance? He was the youngest saint ever beatified by the church. And he was beatified not in spite of debilitating circumstances, not in spite of catastrophic illness, he passed because of leukemia, but because of the character and commitment he showed in dealing with those adversities. See, when he was lying in hospital, he put together this website that categorized every miracle ever recorded in the church's history and put it on a webpage so others can see truly good work that's been done. That brought him serenity. That brought him tranquility. That really brought him closer to really what was at stake, what was just getting through the next day in hospital. He was beatified 2014. And what people remember about this guy was he is the youngest saint in jeans and a hoodie, which was a priest's quote. He will be the youngest saint in jeans and a hoodie. What I want to share with you about that, though, and its applicability to you, is what resources are you going to use? How resourceful are you going to be to meet the challenges at hand? How are you truly going to show up the next time at bat? Really, what's at stake for you going forward is really going to define the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So you should see from that, it's not about being perfect. It's not about, having that I have everything figured out mentality. Figuring it out in the moment is just as valuable as having it figured it out maybe before that. But it's about truly how you rise in that moment that truly counts. So, me to we is the first shift we have to take. It might be simplistic, but me to we, going from an attitude that says, I am the face of my organization. Show of hands, how many people think that's might not be the best way to go about leading an organization that comprises so many variables and moving parts? Show of hands. But it's what's really gonna detract from success, and it's what's really gonna aid in leading you to the next level and bringing on people that you want to be part of your team going forward. Static over allostatic. Show of hands, how many people are interested in the neuroscience of resiliency and what it does to your brain? No lovers of science in the room, I see. No. Static over allostatic. Static is the sense of homeostasis. And the paradox is we crave change, but yet we fear change. We have to shift from being static and seeing things in a regimented, fixated modality, and shifting to an allostatic state of mind. Allostatic represents your industry's and your organization's potential. How allostatic can your team be, essentially? Because allostatic refers to the capacity of the mind to adapt in times of stress. And stress is not being really fixated and focusing on stress, but it's the adaptability of the brain to push itself to that next level. Show of hands, how many people would say that stress is a big factor in leading, an exponential organization? Just for show of hands. So static to allostatic, being allostatic, and it's the great process in the mind that's occurring when you are dealing with stress, whether it's a stressful team member, a stressful client, a stressful stakeholder. Your brain is changing. How many people have heard of neuroplasticity? Well, now you've heard of allostatic. So you've had neuroplasticity and you've heard of allostatic. But those two things are going to be what's the key determinants to activating that resiliency within. Bridges over barriers is really just about having everyone on the same page, creating a bridge instead of a barrier, and not putting up these blocks, whether it's a block on you might not have enough experience, you might not have the right frame of mind right now, but just because someone does it right now doesn't mean that they'll never will. So I used to work in law, and in the firm one day, it was a corporate firm. I brought a client into the firm on my third day on the job. And I had my boss say, that's not what I paid you for. I didn't pay you to bring in a client. I paid you to just be a trainee. Why just go back to being a trainee? And what I want to share with you in that story, though, is that she never saw my potential, though. Because sometimes we overvalue experience and we undervalue potential. How many people know of organizations and there's team members that are being undervalued and you know you can get them to the next level? Show of hands. But what steps are you going to take? How are you going to get them out into their discomfort zone? Because when I stepped away from that law firm, it was discomfort. I was static. But then I became allostatic. I shifted that frame of being. So it's about building that bridge instead of that barrier. Empathy, not apathy. Creating a sense of empathy for your clients, that empathy for your team members, because they're your most vital resource. And don't be apathetic about the little things, the little steps that it takes to get them there. You cannot afford to have any time go by, because there's the 4 horsemen of change that are going to come for your business. And if you cannot let them be resilient, and if you cannot enable a culture that allows for them to express themselves truly, you'll never be able to see what they see and allow them to get the job done in their own special way. So shed apathy and embrace greater empathy. Empathy is what's going to truly win the day. And finally, remove zero-sum thinking. Remove this sense of just because my competitor won, I lost, vice versa. Remove zero-sum thinking that just because I saw myself as in one industry or in one career path, I have to be in the same industry. No, we can all choose to adapt ourselves to the new way of being and the new way of working. Zero-sum thinking is what's going to truly keep you in 2019 thinking, and it's not going to enable you to see the world in a new way and to take your business forward. How did the curveball get there? I'd have to talk to my team about that one. But several books that I'd recommend you can share with your clients, your stakeholders, your team members, bring tremendous value to you. Thank you very much. Tremendously grateful to have your time. Really appreciate it. I'll now open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Hi Colby, thank you for a wonderful talk. Really enjoyed your abbreviation.
हाँ जी, आपका नाम क्या है?
My name is Rajesh Mehrotra.
Pleasure.
Yeah, from Berger Becker.
धन्यवाद.
I'm based in Goa. Okay. I really enjoyed your abbreviations, 3R, and then of course giving 5 ways of handling the resilience. My question to you is, sometimes it is very difficult, particularly when you had a real emotional hit or psychological problem, and it's practically not possible to fight, to bounce back, because many times what happens, it's not easy. So what is your suggestions how to handle those things? Because sometimes the employees really get into a psychological issues, and then to bring them back in the mainstream is a big challenge. So how to handle that?
We're very happy to answer that. So Rajesh, thank you so much for your question. So to really, handle that resiliency and to get out of that comfort zone is what I hear you asking. And yeah, I think it's about, saying, I'm willing to play in the unknown. I'm willing to surrender to the unknown. And I'm not going to be in control of that. And that's okay. Because it's okay to not be perfect. But don't lose sight of what's important in your mission in your organization. Because when you become resilient, you shift your perspectives, you shift your team's perspectives, and you enable them to thrive in a way that they didn't know they had the capabilities to. We have LTD, but I think it should be about LTR, is how firms are going to thrive in this new world. Organizations have to be lean, transparent, and relatable. How lean is your team? How can you shed not only costs, how can you shed apathy? How can you shed those debilitating stumbling blocks? Transparency. How transparent are you about your goals? And relatability. In the modern generational workforce, 60% of this country's employees are going to be under the age of 40. That's our goal right there. What conversations do you want them to be having? And how can you relate to them in a way that boosts your organization's fortunes?
Okay, when you said just now regarding the companies having LTD, they are protecting the downside of their risk. So the vulnerability is, protected. Now I'm talking on behalf of employees. For employees, where specifically in India, when the uncertainty is actually after 10, 20 years of experience of being in the queue, because most of us are in the queue because of limited opportunity, population is more, starting with our education time when you have to write entrance test, exams, and hardly 2% people pass, right? So those 98% cases where your mind is always reading that it is certainty of uncertainty, that you are very certain that you'll be rejected. Now in that scenario, the whole mindset of abundance, it's very natural that you get into insecurity. That's what the major large middle class section in the country. So I'm speaking on behalf of employees, that how do they, in the absence of any protection, like a limited downside of their risk is not protected, how do they develop this? You said UQ rightly. How to develop this UQ when the environment is so fierce, so competitive, and so much certain to lose?
Can I add on the same question? I'm sorry, it's the same question. And
Well, I think it's about finding security in an increasingly insecure world. Because you can face layoffs, you can face massive transformations at the drop of a thimble. So it's really about, navigating it with a sense of serenity. And it's a sense of, it might not be so clear-cut the way forward. We're used to saying, because of the culture that we are inculcated with, it was like that for our grandfathers, our fathers, their fathers. It's going to be like that right now. But we have to divorce ourselves step by step by step from that mentality. And it's only by doing that that we can start to shift the dial to becoming more resilient and more secure in an increasingly insecure world, because we can't get rid of insecurity. On the outside, we can try to get rid of insecurity on the inside, but insecurity on the outside is always going to persist. There are going to be known unknowns. So when you could shift the dial to just going step by step and saying, here's how we can add bits of security day by day, and journaling about that before you get to business priorities, that's going to shift the needle a lot.
Yeah, so maybe I'll little deep dive on that. When I'm talking about insecurity, as you said, you can be fired. So I'm not talking about those people who can be fired. I'm talking about people who don't have at the first instance the job itself. They're underemployed. I belong to a place called Bihar, where we have crores of people. They don't find the opportunity. They're very certain about their misery. When you're so certain about the misery, and I think there must be some answer because you have done so much work, that where do they start? I really want to help them. I really want to be with them.
Sure.
Where is the first start for them to get to the journey of developing the mind of abundance? Because it's not about uncertainty of something hitting them in the later. They are hit today. They are already in the part of that misery that they are not able to make it because of the queue system what they have, and the window is going to get closed before they go there. So those people, how can we, they will say, you talk whatever, you're in the air, you're talking about 50,000 feet, come to the reality in my state, in my district, I don't have. So why should not I be cynical? Why should not I be insecure? I don't have anything to feed myself. And I understand we are not governments, but as corporates, as community leaders, how can we help them to set this mindset into a little more abundant and a secure kind of resilient?
So what I would say to that, firstly, is how can they leverage their environment in a way that best supports them? Because you're right. If it's too much to go to that next level, and it's going to be uncomfortable because we have to get out into the discomfort zone, but we have to start small. So leverage their environment. If it's around, vast parts of this country are agrarian based, wheats, crops, how can they leverage that? What small things can they use? And just like the example of that homeless gentleman, he could wall up in the uncertainty and in the chaos and in the dysfunction because, the head, the perception and, the disease thinking starts in the head though, and then it manifests outwards though. So, firstly, leverage the environment. Secondly, reframe the mindset, the mindset shift. Thirdly, being more grateful. Not in a way that's just going to be superfluous, but in a way that's real. And say, it's okay that I'm feeling this way, but I'm going to adapt myself, I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to make a crack out of it, because to do elsewise is a fool's errand. Just to perpetuate that thinking and not leverage ourselves to that. We're in a time right now where being resourceful and being entrepreneurial, not just in vocation, but in thinking, UQ and entrepreneurialism go hand in hand. So it's about divorcing that and embracing the opposite.
It was exactly on the same tone. What to do, but I would come in an opposite way, like what Rama spoke about, those who are maybe in the underprivileged, the ones who are already in, while having up to certain level multiple opportunities in the country, are not ready to take these challenges, to improve their resilience, and then on day one, when you reach certain thing in your ladder, in your career, and then you are trapped in a situation where this is needed, but you never had to do it. Your parents are helping you, whatever, you got everything done through yourself or through others, but then you step in a situation like this. So this is a lot of times I'll see it with below 40 age group who hadn't any of such bad experience before in life. How we prepare them.
Sorry, can you repeat the end of the question, please?
How to prepare those who never had to step into a problem where resilience was actually really needed, where always a second option or a way to the left or to the right was possible, just to avoid that I have to stand, and now I have to go straight. Without any option left.
Well, I mean, it all rests on passion. You know, because you have this resilience, this great virtue that lies within. And then you have what you're passionate about in a job, in a vocation, and in a career. So you talk about going left to right, but you want to stay even keeled and in the middle. But if you lack passion, then it's all going to fall apart. Because you have to be passionate about something.
How to create this? That someone sees the opportunity. Like what you said, the homeless guy hasn't given up. He took it. Maybe 10 would give up, surrender, and the life may end. How we can encourage people of taking these extra steps?
You have
to go the hard way.
Huh?
Go actually the hard way.
We have to start small. We have to start small. I mean, if you look at, foundations of Nike, started small. Apple started small. Ingenuity, Pepsi didn't start small, but really small steps promoted the greatest evolution in Pepsi's history. So you have to start small, and that's going to be the driving force that powers everything. Because you're going to shed ego, you're going to shed apathy, you're going to shed maybe it's lack of self-esteem. If it's a lack of self-esteem, do acts that promote greater esteem, greater self-esteem. Like, I could have wallowed in that thinking, let my boss's perception of my potential be my actual potential. But I didn't. I chose to bring potential back within. And that's how I got started. And that's how I moved forward.
Colby? Yeah, regarding what Mario said, how do you motivate people who already have or they inherited or already done it to do their best because they have never experienced adversity? How do we do that? And as an academician, we have experienced this, that a lot of children get everything from their early years, and every day when they go, they meet people, whether in parties or their homes, everywhere, people who have. So they come back wanting to have more for themselves, and then at some point it becomes a disillusionment. What we found was the best thing to motivate such people or children or is to have an experience of the have-nots. Because they must have seen in movies and all, but a direct interaction like you had with the person who was homeless. So all these people who don't have motivation, if you just have a wonderful sharing or an experience of the have-nots, a new purpose comes into life to change others' lives.
Adversity loves your ego. By going through adversity once, you have that blueprint to go through it again. So adversity and that repetition of going through adversity is what's going to be very important. As I share in the curveball, it's not so much about doing something brand new, but it's about doing what you did in the past again and again and again. So if I understand your question, it's just about going through that cycle and let it play out, but being sure within yourself that you have the answers because you faced the adversity before.
Yeah, Colby, I think one last question. Quick, yeah. Colby, I'm here. I'm Pradeep. Yeah, okay. Nice presentation, nice research. So my question is slightly academic. How do we measure resilience? Is there a metric to measure it, or is it only the perspectives of people around or the leaders?
So there's a lot of research around the human neuroscience of resiliency. And yes, there are ways to measure it. I think it's like adversity, though. It's on a spectrum. We didn't get into this in the presentation, but there's resilience and then there's what's called post-traumatic growth. If resilience is a positive outcome in the face of adversity, post-traumatic growth is growth in trauma that redefines your fundamental basic beliefs. So it's on a spectrum. You know, if it's a business transition, that's resilient. But if someone gets a catastrophic illness though, what spectrum is at play and how are they going to deploy the resources to navigate that spectrum? And on what continuum are they going to travel that journey? Thank you.